It is November 29th, Friday, 2024. It's the day after Thanksgiving, commonly called Black Friday. And I encourage all of you to not shop. They extend Black Friday deals through the whole week. You don't need to go to any giant superstore. And no one should be shopping on Thanksgiving. No store needs to be open. Um, you know, Fill your tank up ahead of time. Although, if you're driving a long ways on Thanksgiving, I guess you need, places along the highway. Anyway, not the point. But you don't need retailers don't need to be working on Thanksgiving. But I listened earlier this week to a thing on NPR on uh, the Freakonomics. Is that what it's called? The sort of the finance show on NPR, and it was fascinating. They were talking about the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which I always call the Macy's Day Thanksgiving Parade. Um, and this was the 100th year. I mean, sorry, it started 100 years ago in 1924, but it's the 98th parade because they didn't have the parade for 2 years during World War II. So the next ones will be the 99th and 100th. Um, that it started with actual like elephants and animals walking down the street. They were borrowed from the Central Park Zoo, and then they were like, well, this is too unwieldy. Let's make animals out of balloons. And they used to release the balloons at the end, and they were like big, not as big as today, but big. And they had to stop releasing the balloons because a plane hit one and nearly crashed in the Empire State Building. Which is like fun stuff and trivia, and it didn't occur to me. I mean, I know that there is at least a years long planning for this. It's a huge um, uh, event, and there is a lot of moving parts to it. It takes a lot of coordination um, to put it together. But I didn't realize that not Disney, Macy's has an entire like design department around the balloons. They've got a design studio out in New Jersey, and that it's like an 18-month lead time to figure out what balloons they're going to use for what parade, if new balloons need to get made, and then they design the balloons, with the sponsor and any balloon that hasn't actually flown in the parade before gets a test run. They fill it with helium and they do it at the parking lot at MetLife Stadium. Which I just feel like I want to see that. I want to see the parade of trial balloons. Can I find out what day that happens? Because I know that the night before, all around the Upper West Side, the inflation of the balloons, before it was sort of a touristy thing. I had a friend who lived on Columbus, and he would always have Thanksgiving the night before Thanksgiving in his tiny apartment. And then we'd go, make a little cocktail and go look at the balloons getting blown up around the neighborhood. They're held down with nets, but they have to start the night before so that everything's ready for the morning. And so I'm aware of all that, and that has gotten a lot more commercialized since, and a lot more sort of public and touristy, where it used to just sort of be an Upper West Side neighborhood thing. Um, but the thing that I found fascinating was that Macy's refuses, and they were fine. They gave interviews all from all levels of the organization, and doing that, at the design studio, and but what will not do and not discuss is finances. They brought in a woman from the city because they have to get all the permits to shut all the roads and do all the things, and even just the the permits for the parade, for the roads that they're going to close and what they need to do, and for the traffic, and to sort of clear the roadways of anything that the balloons might get caught on or might tip over, is in the $3 million range, which I assume they don't. They must have an agreement with the city that they're not going to pay the top price for every permit. That they'll do it. These are all the things that we need done. We'll negotiate a price to pay that, but they're paying the city a good deal of money. They have this whole design studio that they have to that that they afford. Um, and it but it is a commercial endeavor. They're selling the TV rights. They get sponsors for the for the balloons. They have sponsors in the show itself. This is the truck that brings down all the floats, and um, it's one of the most watched programs every year, over 30 million people a year. So it's a lot of eyeballs, captive eyeballs. Um, and I mean, it's not Super Bowl size, but that's a big audience, and people pay to participate in it and get their show or film or cause or whatever their product on the parade. And it didn't occur to me until I was sort of thinking about the math of all of that, that maybe the reason that Macy's doesn't want to talk about finances, because I've always thought, Jesus, that Macy's does the Thanksgiving Day parade and the fireworks on the 4th of July for the city of New York, and that's got to be a shit ton of money. Is there some sort of charitable arm, that takes the loss? How do they do that? And it didn't occur to me until I started thinking about how commercial that parade is, that it actually might be a good money maker for Macy's. And it's not costing them anything, that it's actually contributing to their bottom line overall. And that's why they don't want to release the finances, because they're actually making bank on it. That never occurred to me, and I'm not mad about that at all. I'm like, I'm kind of impressed. Good job, Macy's. Here we are. Look at this great thing we're doing for the city. In the meanwhile, they're like, cha-ching. Maybe, I don't know. They won't talk about it, but I think part of the reason they don't want to talk about it is because they're fleecing some folks. It's good for them. Retail's a hard business. Um, so anyway, I just thought that was interesting and thought I would share. And the other thing that I was thinking yesterday, because I was at home in the morning, it had snowed overnight. It was very white outside and cold. It had started to rain, and I'm just in my big old adult onesie. Um, I poured a beer in a fancy glass and pretended it was champagne because I didn't want to open the champagne. And I was like, I'm having a little Thanksgiving beer sitting here in my little cabin watching the Macy's Day Parade, um, and having the best little time. And then I did some baking, and then I had dinner with some friends, which was lovely. Uh, and the past few years, I've hosted here, so it was nice to have someone else's house be a mess and not have to be frantic. I just made a pumpkin cheesecake, which was delicious. Um, but even if I didn't have that to go to, I would have been fine here by myself. Um, I don't know what I would have done for dinner. The dog probably would have gotten something special, uh, which he will get tonight. But I was looking at stuff online and people talking, and I just thought people need to sort of take it down a notch, and lower the expectation. Um, Even if you're not on your own, if you just don't feel like it, um, it's okay to not participate and be like, I'm going to take the year off. Um, you know, in a lot of cases, um, there are times when someone who's on their own, it can feel much more lonely to be in a crowd of people that are celebrating something you don't really feel like celebrating, or are, you know, sort of amongst each other in a way that you aren't amongst them. And that can feel worse than just doing something on your own. Um, and the idea that you always have to be somewhere for this holiday is kind of cruel. Like, I just don't feel like we give people enough of their own agency. Um, and too many people feel guilty about taking that time for themselves. At one point, we sat down to eat, and somebody said, we want to say all the things that we're thankful for. And I was like, can we not? But there was a woman who's going through cancer treatment, and there's people, there's just stuff that they're thankful for. just being there. They're thankful for the support that they've had. Thankful for their families, whatever. Um, and I'm just feeling so much like overall existential dread. It was like I'm thankful that there's vodka. I don't really want to get that deep into it. Um, and it was interesting because only about half the table said anything, and it just kind of fizzled out, which was great. Because as soon as the first one, and it was kind of heavy, it was like, well, cheers. And then somebody else gave one. Well, okay, cheers to that. I was like, let's just no, let's eat. There's also like 11 of us. That takes a long time. Um, but uh, yeah, I mean, the point of the whole story is that it, I just think we need to be a little more sensitive um, about not expecting whatever the traditional thing that has happened to happen every year with the same personnel or however you've done it before or however you're expecting it to go. It's not just your holiday. It's a day of the year, just like every other day of the year. And everybody has their own agency to decide how they want to participate or not participate in the hoopla of it. And everybody should be shown the grace to do that and not with pity, um, but with understanding. You know, fill your boots, boo, whatever that is. So that's my Thanksgiving message. In this year that may be the last year of the democracy of the United States of America. Isn't that cheerful? Sorry. Let's go back to you do you, boo. Fill your boots. Happy Thanksgiving.